Hi everybody, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on such a lovely day, and welcome to this afternoon's session, Email Marketing Strategies for Your Horticulture Business, How to Increase Sales Using Mailchimp. If I can make you all aware that this session is being recorded, so it will be made available to rewatch via our YouTube channel on our website on the Knowledge Hub section in a few days to come. So if anybody has any issues with this, if you could just let me know, or let us know via the Tyfu Cymru email or in the chat, that'd be great. It's quite a small session today, so we're going to have a bit more of an informal approach. You can either chip in with questions as we go along, or you can pop them in the chat. It's up to you. I'd like to introduce Eddie Webb to us. He's a highly experienced digital consultant, and he's delivered similar training on behalf of Tyfu Cymru in the past, that's resulted in some great success stories. So we're delighted to welcome him here as he guides us through how to increase sales using Mailchimp. So over to you, Eddie.
Great, thank you. I'll just share my screen and move this over. Yeah, so if you do feel free to ask me the questions as we go. There won't be time at the end. I think this is an hour session, so yeah, there definitely won't be time at the end. For some reason, Zoom isn't letting me see your face at the moment, but I'm sure you're all still there. So this session then is about email marketing for growers using Mailchimp. The basic plan for this is I'm going to talk about a little bit about data protection, then talk about building an email list, and then go into Mailchimp and show you some things. There's obviously not enough time to have a full training session on Mailchimp, but it might actually help you understand a few things. Maybe some of you are doing it already as well. So it's a chance to ask those questions that have been bugging you. So I'll go with the presentation. Wasn't supposed to do that. So that we're not going to cover. This, unfortunately, the slides are a different shape. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come out of this view and do it like this because they don't really match my screen. So basically, we've been going for 16 years now, based in Aberystwyth, Swansea, and Shrewsbury, all over the place. All over the place, really, because we're all working from home now. So, but we do digital marketing. So we do a lot of work with Tyfu Cymru, with other sectors as well. But we are tasked day to day with doing email marketing to bring in results. So when I talk to you today, this is about things we are actually doing. It's not just about the theory. As I said, the cover we're going to cover today is privacy and legal stuff. Get that out of the way first off. Building a mailing list, using Mailchimp, and then basic tips on improving it. And if I'm looking to the right, it's because I'm monitoring the chat, but just unmute and ask me questions. Right, exciting bit first then. So this is about privacy and legality and whether you can email and who you can't email and that sort of thing. Basic principle is that you must state what purpose you're collecting information for. So if you're going to get somebody's email, whether it's at a show or online or however you're going to get it, you need to tell them why you're having it and what you're going to do with it. That you're not going to give it to anyone else, that you're not going to sell it to anyone, and how you're going to contact them in future. And ideally, the whole thing revolves around that consent, that permission to contact them in the future in one way or another. The easiest way to comply with that part of it in terms of letting people know what you're going to do with their data is to have a privacy policy on your website. Make sure that privacy policy is up to date, make sure it includes things like cookies, Gdpr. There's lots of places online too, you can find them. You can obviously borrow somebody else's. I'm not telling you to do that, but that's what people do. But if you do that, make sure you borrow one from somebody in a similar sector, not like that ferry company during Brexit who borrowed one and it talked about pizza delivery in their terms and conditions in the privacy policy. GDPR, that exciting four-letter word that we all got to find out about a couple of years ago. I'll talk about that more in a second, but you have to comply with it. But the basic principle is you shouldn't be emailing people unless they're expecting it or want it. And you should always offer the option for people to unsubscribe. Don't worry about unsubscribes. They happen, they'll happen every time. Your list gets more and more refined. Data protection, you may need to register with the Information Commissioner if you are selling your data, if you're transferring your data to third parties, if you're storing sensitive information, this wouldn't really apply to you, like disability, information or credit card information, then you may need to register. I had to register for one of my companies the other day because I'm literally storing sensitive information and swapping it around. So you can go onto the Information Commissioner's website, and there's a test on there to say, to answer these questions, it will tell you if you need to register or not. You'll fill out a complicated form that you won't understand, and then from that point forward, you'll spend £35 a year filling out that form or paying that money and not really know why, but you'll be a registered data controller. The basic principles, again, is you should only hold necessary information, but that is misleading because for me, holding an email address for a potential customer, I want to hold that for as long as they're interested and as long as they may still come back to me as a customer. So for me, it's necessary for me to store that for at least 10 years because I want to keep marketing to them. And I have had clients that will come back to me after 10 years. The same thing here, that you shouldn't hold information if you don't need it anymore. Now, what you need, it's very different from business to business. If you're selling, maybe it was a wedding you did flowers for, or maybe it was somebody who bought a certain type of plants, then you want to keep that information so that in 10 years from their wedding, you can send them a little card saying happy wedding anniversary and hope that it lasted. But you know, whatever information you need to store to do that marketing or for your records can be for a long time. So some people are really sort of aggressive with their data and just get rid of things and delete things. I know solicitors that if they've had a business card for a month and they haven't done anything with it, then they have to shred it and they can't leave them on their desks overnight. So you can go the opposite way with it. Keep the information up to date, hold it securely. So don't store it on a USB drive and leave it on a back of a taxi or something, which has happened before. And the basic principle is that you must observe their rights under Gdpr, which applies to every business. Sorry about my presentation format. It's just I'm going to go live soon, so I don't use standard PowerPoint in this situation. It almost, to the untrained eye, looks like I don't know what I'm doing, but I do, hopefully. So GDPR, it was really badly advised at the time. I don't know what your thoughts on it are, but it was quite badly advised. People were told to get rid of their data, their email addresses if they didn't have consent, or to go out and get re-consent to contact people. None of those were necessary. There are 6 different reasons why you might need to store data. One of them is consent, which is what everyone talked about. And this would mean that however you got it, you need to be able to prove that you had got consent to email people and to store that data. And that is what, until right before, a few days before it was actually implemented, that was what everyone was saying. But by then it was too late and everyone had deleted their email addresses. You also might need to store it because you've got a contract with them. You've got a legal obligation if you're a business to store data for 7 years anyway, for your taxes, for your accounts. There are a couple of other reasons there, but the key one, the really important one that you sort of hang your hat on when it comes to email marketing is that you have a legitimate interest to store that information. There are rules on business to business where you've got a legitimate interest. If it's another business, you can store and find and store that information. But what I'm talking about here is customer information. So basic premise here is that if a customer contacts, if you do something with a customer, you can store that information because you have a legitimate interest to market to them in the future. And that is without consent. So you might be sitting there now thinking, well, I've got 100 people who bought from my website. I know, Callum, maybe that's not the case yet. But you've only got so many people who've actually subscribed. In actual fact, you can store and process the information from all of them because they're a customer and you have a legitimate interest in doing so. When you send an email, it's actually covered under a different act. It's covered under the Privacy and Electronic Communications Directive, which actually kind of goes against GDPR. And GDPR says that if there is another act that contradicts it, then that act takes precedence. Privacy and Electronic Communications Directive says basically you can't send emails to people without permission unless they've opted in. However, you can send unsolicited commercial emails to existing customers when marketing your own products and services that are similar to those bought by the customer in the past. So if somebody has been a customer of yours, you can email them. Sending an email is not covered by GDPR. It's covered under the Privacy Electronic Communications Act. Taking that a step further, if you had somebody inquiring about a product or a service, or you had somebody who filled out your contact form on your website, and you didn't have a little tick box on there to say, can we contact you in future? You can't email those people. Only the ones that actually came through and became a customer. It's so disconcerting that I can't see your faces, but there we go. I'm sure everyone's still there. I've still got a number 7 at the top, so there's still people on the course. So hopefully that makes sense and clarifies whether you can send people emails. The value of customer data. The best opportunity for getting new business is through your existing clients. Not in all sectors. Like I said, weddings can be a bit difficult for repeat business. You have to wait a little bit of time before you can go back to them. But it's a lot cheaper and more cost effective to go back to your existing customers than it is to find new ones. So one of the things that we do then is focus on working your existing customer base or people who've expressed an interest in your business. One thing I would say to you is that obviously an email marketing campaign will not be successful unless you've got emails on your list, which sounds very obvious, but there are probably emails that are coming your way that come through your business that you maybe are missing and not getting on your mailing list. Maybe you've got customers who are ringing you up and ordering things, but you're not actually getting their email address and consent over the phone to add them. So have a plan how people are going to get onto your Mailchimp account or whatever account you're going to use. In my business, they'll come over the phone, they'll come by email, they'll come by meeting people at events, exchange of business cards, which actually is consent if you swap business cards with somebody. So I'll have a folder on my desktop where they're going to come in. I've got my account system, which is Xero, so I'll use that. So I make sure that I've got a way of any customer I've had or anyone I've got consent that there's a route for them to end up on Mailchimp, because you need to keep building your list. So have that system. In terms of building your own list, I'll try this again. In terms of building your own list, you could have a little button on your website saying subscribe to our newsletter. You'll get a couple of people maybe filling that in, but very few people go onto our website and say, oh, there's a little sign up to a newsletter. I think I'll fill that in because I'd like a little bit more spam. I haven't got much in my inbox at the moment. You need to incentivize people in some way. You need to either give them some money off their first order or give them some useful information. And I think most businesses have some benefit or some information that they can give to people, whether it is how to create a herb wheel. I'm literally making this up as I go along, okay? But how to create a herb wheel for your garden, the top 10 most fragrant herbs for cooking, something like that, or how to get more flavor out of herbs. I could go the flower route, but you get the idea. You come up with a theme or some information or some content that people will receive when they sign up to your newsletter. Competitions can work really well. One of the things we do is Facebook competitions, not to get likes and shares, but to win something, but you enter by giving your email address. And we set up something called Facebook lead ads. Now, if any of this is sounding complicated, it's like Facebook lead ads, which is slightly complicated, you should be 99% of the time entitled to have one-to-one support through myself or one of my team to help set these things up, to train you how to do it. So bear that in mind. But the way a lead ad works is that you run an advert on Facebook, and when people enter, their email address and their first name is automatically in the form. So they just press the button they're in. So it's a nice, quick way of getting email addresses onto your list. You might have a booking form or an order form, a contact form on your website. And remember, if you've got that, have that little tick box. And then you've got pop-ups, which if I was to ask you all now, do you like pop-ups? You would all say no. But I'm going to demonstrate why I think pop-ups are good. So I don't know if anyone's got them on their website already, but let me try, what I normally try, agritelonline.co.uk. So what I'm not saying you should do is have a pop-up that appears immediately and annoys you. You shouldn't have that. You should have one that comes up when you go to leave, and it may not work on this website, but I'll try. So when I go to leave. So then as I've gone to leave, it says sign up to our mailing list, put your email in. Maybe you could do with a better incentive to sign up. This is another way of doing it. I think I'm spelling that correctly. And the reason I've gone into incognito mode to do this is because I've obviously closed these pop-ups before. And again, no pop-ups showing. I can browse around, do whatever I want. But when I go to leave, then it gives me a different kind of pop-up. This is from OptiMonk. This is free. Doesn't cost you anything. And I'll just sign up, put my email address in, and spin. All depends on your brand and what you're trying to do. You can change the colors, you can change what they get, you can change the likelihood of them winning different things. So I've got 10% off. And then it will give that, and I've got a code and I can use, and that will build your list. So that's pop-ups. Okay. So annoying. I need to resample this presentation. Never mind. What I'm going to show you here is Excel. Just very quickly, I'll answer this question as well. If you had regular horticultural tips for potential customers, would it be counterproductive to call it a newsletter? I think you call it whatever you want to call it, but that is the exact thing that I would be doing. I've run email marketing courses for around probably 18 years now. And one of the slides I used to have was, if I was a garden centre, I would be giving monthly emails about what you should be doing in the garden. And you don't have to be a garden centre to do that. It's just finding something that your customers want to read and that is useful, that they'll sign up for. They might get an initial calendar when they sign up of the key times to do certain things in the garden, but then when they sign up, they get a drip feed every month. You don't have to call it a newsletter. It can just be an email, really. Remember that with emails, the main objective is to get them onto your website, not to have a big long email that they can sit there and read, because people don't read it. You need to have the story starting on your website and then use email to draw them to read it. The reason I'm showing you this with Excel is because when you're thinking about your data that you're going to put in your email addresses that you're going to put into Mailchimp, you need to think about whether you're going to segment that in any way. So I'm just dragging this in. This is some fictitious data, generally fictitious, so I'm just going to close that in case I'm revealing any email addresses. Now, with Excel, you don't need a, excuse the fighter jet that's just going overhead. You don't need to have a sophisticated database or content management system, contact management system, customer relationship management system. Excel, if you use it this way, you can have your top row of information like this, and then the information underneath is your customer data. The great thing about doing it in Excel is that I could go in here and add another column, which is like type of customer. And then within that, I might say one of them's like business, and another one's a consumer, or one's trade. I'll just do this to demonstrate. And if ever you think you might be wanting to email people different things, then it's good to define that early on, so that when you want to send a special email to trade or to whoever, then you can segment those audiences. So I'm just going to, within Excel, you can go data and then filter. You don't need to know about formulas and that sort of thing. And then any of this information, I can then filter and say, just show me all the business customers. And then I will be able to import just those email addresses into a separate group within Mailchimp. So it's worthwhile thinking about where you're going to store the information before you actually bring it into Mailchimp at all. So what I'm going to show you when we go into Mailchimp very shortly is how to import that into groups and segments. The reason we're talking about email marketing is because it's really effective. Did you know, for example, that when we look at traffic landing on a website, email marketing is up to 40 times more effective at converting a customer? 40 times. When people come from social media, yes, you'll get the odd sale and you get some engagement, but when they're coming from there, normally the thing that was in their mind was not to buy from you. What was in their mind was to have a good time, entertain themselves, look at funny videos of dogs, cats, and whatever, and see what their friends are up to, see how many likes they got on their latest photo. That's why they're on social media. So if they do see you, and they might come to your website, when they're there, they are very much less likely to buy. When they're using email, it's usually a much higher conversion rate. Through virtually every client I've seen, that's the case. And yet, people don't do it because social media maybe is a little bit more fun. It's really quick. You can have something out there and start, even if you've got a load of data and emails that you're not using, just by within a couple of hours, you can have an email up and running and out, going out there, bringing in sales, inquiries, whatever you want. Don't send an email to anyone who doesn't want it. This is about just because somebody stayed with you, maybe, sorry, they sort of like bought from you maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, doesn't mean they want daily updates of what you're up to and what you're planting and whatever. You need to balance it. In terms of frequency, it depends on your business and what you sell. I think monthly is a good frequency. We do it every 2 weeks at the moment. I have one client that sells a lot of products and they do it every week, but maybe once a month is a good sort of target point. I wouldn't really do it much less than that unless it really wasn't working. And what we're talking about here is not doing this from a computer. And the reasons you wouldn't do it from your computer, as in using Microsoft Word, you can actually do email merges from Microsoft Word and send it from your computer. Don't do that, you'll get stopped for spam. Don't use the CC field. If you use the CC field, then the carbon copy field, then you're actually breaching data protection. If you use the BCC field, then it won't get through because it will be classed as spam. So you need to be using something like Mailchimp, and to be totally frank with you, the only reason this is a Mailchimp course is because it's the cheapest for under 2,000 subscribers, as in it's free. When you start going over that, then you might want to start looking at other platforms. We use Constant Contact. I've used it for years and years and years and years. So I'm probably kind of stuck with that. But there's nothing wrong with Mailchimp, but I'm just saying that's why we're focusing on it. It's their sales strategy, get you in, build the list, and then hopefully in time you'll spend money with them. What I'm going to do now is abandon my presentation and go into Mailchimp and start talking you through that. Please do ask questions if you've got any. If you haven't got any, then great. But I will just keep whittering on. So this is a bit of a dummy account. I'm just going to put a bit of a blur feature on here because I have got some real email addresses, and that should actually stop you seeing those unless you sort of pause the video, those who are watching it on screen. So first couple of bits to show you. I'd imagine some of you got Mailchimp already, so forgive me if you've already done this, but you might not have seen these little bits. I'm going to go to the little account bit on the bottom left there. Used to be on the top right, now it's the bottom left. Mailchimp likes to move things around, which can make it awkward to find things. And I'm going to go to the account. And in there, the bit I'm going to show you is integrations. There's 2 integrations. How do you get onto Mailchimp? Literally go to mailchimp.com. You'll get a copy of this presentation sent out to you, and the link is on there, but literally go to mailchimp.com and then you sign up to an account, and it will try and guide you through the different things you've got to do. And this that I'm showing you here is one of the things that you should do as part of that process. And a lot of people don't do it. The 2 ones I would recommend that you do are Facebook and Google. Facebook is actually less useful in a way, but for some of you, I'd imagine, I think there was somebody I didn't quite see the faces before I went on doing flowers. So you probably got a nice looking Instagram feed. Maybe all of you got good looking Instagram feeds. If you connect to Facebook, it enables you to do 3 major things. 1, you can post automatically to Facebook when you've sent an email. 2, it will actually allow you to add a little tab on your Facebook page that people can fill in and sign up to your email list. And 3, it will actually link you up to something over on the left that you may never have looked at if I hadn't pointed it out, called the Content Studio. So when you've linked Facebook up, it will also link up to your Instagram, assuming that you've got the 2 connected. And what that means is that it will pull in all of your Instagram images ours is not that exciting, but all of your Instagram images, which then when you're building an email, you can just drop them straight in without you having to go and download them from the phone, email them to yourself, and then import them into Mailchimp. So it's quite a nifty little feature. So that was in account and then integrations. Google is, all that will do is link it up with your Google Analytics. So if you have a website, you should be thinking about having Google Analytics on there. If you haven't got it on there, it's fundamental to any marketing. You need to know how many visitors you're getting and whether they're inquiring with you and how many pages they're looking at. So having that is quite important. It's very quick to do. And what that means is whenever you send an email from Mailchimp, you will be able to see exactly what the performance was from your email. Not just how many people clicked and how many people opened it, but actually what did they do on your website. So you get to see that information. So those two integrations are the main ones. The other ones here offer integration with online shops, which have some benefits, but these are the two main ones I would do. So over on the left-hand side here, and bear in mind that if any of this I'm doing too fast for you, when we do training, proper training, you can have quite a few hours of training with us. We can obviously do it slower and you can do it. So I have helped people, as you've probably seen on some of the testimonials, go from the beginning training to setting up a template to getting the email out the door. So don't panic. This is about you getting a feel for it as much as anything. If you think I'm going to not into enough detail in certain things. So on the left here, we have an audience. It's called an audience. It used to be called a list, but now it's called an audience. It's just that Mailchimp changing its terminology. And when I go into here, I can see all my contacts, which hopefully it'll blur, which it isn't doing. There we go. So I'm revealing some there. So let me try and see if I can just zoom in a little bit. Okay, apologies to those who had their email address revealed. Maybe we can blur that out on the video. That's the dangers of doing a video of a demonstration. So when I go in here, the one thing I want to point out to you is manage contacts, and then groups, segments, and tags. Now, if you're in the future, you're just going to say, you know what, I'm just going to put everyone in my email list, and I'm going to email everyone the same thing, then you don't need to worry too much about groups, segments, and tags. But you need to understand them because they could be useful to you. A group is a way of defining, categorizing a customer, like saying they're a business or that they're trade or they're an end user, or they're your best customers or they're like a new customer. However you're defining that. And you create those groups within your audience and say, right, like I've got here, what is your gender and what is my customer grade? Those are ones I've made before. And you very simply create a group and say, the top three options here are ones that people can choose themselves. So when they sign up to you, anything that you create, they'll be able to say, yes, I'm a male, female, or whatever, or I'm a vegetarian, or I like fruit, or whatever it is you want to get from those people. This one here, don't show it when people sign up. That is where you define your customers. So you put them in different categories as you go. And as I said to you, I've got what is your gender and what is the customer grade, because I might want to send different options to different people, different emails to different people. Then you've got segments. And this is where the language is confusing, because groups, what they do is they enable you to segment your data. It's just the language that they use. But segments, you need to look at them more as something you would create that are more live and changing. So a segment could be anyone who signed up in the last week, anyone who didn't open your last email, anyone who clicked any of the last 5 emails. And when you go to send an email, Mailchimp gives you the options on how to create those different individual segments. So it's the main one we would use there actually is a segment to say, send my email again to anyone who didn't open it. And so that will be a live segment. Tags are also useful. Say if you've run a competition, you might want to tag all those people and say, these came from the competition. You might want to use that to prove that you've actually got that entry, that consent. Maybe they came from your accounting package, or maybe it came from a historic website or wherever, but you can tag them and say, these people came from here. And then that enables you in the future, if you want to email that people because they're tagged in a certain way. As I said, if you're just thinking, I'm just going to email everyone and everything, then that's fine. But you might find it useful to, as you get in this, just to categorize them a little bit. People will get onto your list in a couple of ways, really. One is that you'll add them in there yourself. And two is they'll use a sign-up form. Adding contacts, you get the option to just add a single subscriber, which very few people do because it's quite long-winded. But the main thing you would actually do is import contacts. Now, it says here, and you might be tempted, I don't know how technically minded any of you are, but if you've come across CSV before, comma separated values, lots of different packages, accounting packages, Outlook and whatever, will give you email addresses and whatever in the format called CSV, comma separated values. And you might think, oh yeah, I've got a CSV file with all my email addresses in, I'll upload that. I'm going to say to you, don't do that. There's no need to do that. You may as well just copy and paste it. It's so much easier. And I've done that with 20,000 email addresses at a time, just copied them from spreadsheet or wherever they are and pasted them in. So much easier. So just to go back to my spreadsheet I was showing you earlier, what I would do in this situation is copy those. I know I've got a blank one at the bottom. It's just how I'm copying them. Right click and copy wherever you've got them from. If I wanted to have the first name in, then what I'd actually do, to be honest with you, is just get rid of a load of this and then just do that. So whatever information you want to import, you just copy it from a Word document or from wherever, and then paste it. Now it will say, can I work it out? Do I want to organize it? Make sure you say they're subscribed, not unsubscribed. I know somebody who imported 500 contacts as unsubscribed and then wondered why you couldn't email anyone. If I wanted to, I could categorize them into groups at this point. So if I've done those and thought, right, actually, these are my business customers or whatever, I could say these are my medium grade customers, my pretty good customers, if you want to. Update any existing contacts. If I'm adding more information, like maybe in the past I only had email addresses, but now I've imported first names. So this will update any other information it's managed to get. This is where I can tag it. So I could say, or whatever, there should be one here actually. I'm going to say competition 2021. So that's where they came from. So if anyone ever came back to me anytime and said, how come I'm on your mailing list? I'll say, well, do you remember at that stall when you filled in that bit of paper and you didn't check at the bottom where it said I was going to mail you forever? If you did, then you'll be able to say that's where you signed up. And you can give them multiple tags. It's just a way of helping you understand who's who. And then it takes you and says, right, it doesn't understand what the data is. Now here it's blurred. I'll do it very quickly. You see it's blurred. That's because I've tried to protect people from seeing email addresses. Here, it doesn't know this is a first name. So I need to click in and tell it that this is a first name, even though it's the first one it's guessed at. Confirm. So now it's all matched. I can finalize the import. If I'd had imported that big CSV file, I would have had to go through every single column and check that it was okay. But by just copying and pasting the information I wanted, it was easier. Okay, so they go in, 10 people are going to be added, and I go complete. And there we are. So it might take you a little bit of time, but as long as you just understand that it's here, copy and paste, it's a good way of getting your data across quite quickly. The common thing you'll end up doing with that is if you sell online and you've got your customers online and you need to export them and then bring them into Mailchimp. Sign-up forms, the other way where people get onto your website. Now, there's three I'm going to show you here, the top main three that you might use. Form Builder is the simplest one. And I say it's the simplest because the only way people get to this form really is by using this very unique web address that's unique to you. So I'm going to copy this and just show you what it looks like. So anyone who goes to that address, I've known people use it in their Instagram bio as a link. I've known people put it in an email signature. So, you know, whenever you send an email out, at the bottom it says sign up to our newsletter or download a free guide or whatever it is. And you use this link in your email so that people can go and get it. So it's unique to you. You go in there, customize it. So change the fields, change the design, because obviously it's a bit of a weird design. Just in terms of colors, I don't know whether, in fact, probably it's quite a short course, but let me bring up Tyfu Cymru's website. I'll show you, because one of the things you need to make sure is that it matches your brand. So make sure the colors match your brand. Now, there's a couple of ways of doing this, well, 3 ways of doing it, but I'll show you 2 of them. You see here at the top right, I've got a little color picker. It's a little extension for Google Chrome called Color Pick Eyedropper. Once you see it, you'll like it. And when you click on that, it's totally free on any website, and then you just go and hover over, and it says that's your color. 981D2B. And I can just literally copy that and go back into here and say that's the color I want. And then that will then match the color. So that's one way you can do it. And now you see that will change. Another way that is quite new to Mailchimp is in the Content Studio. There's a creative assistant. And what you do is you put in your web address within there, reset my brand. You put your web address in, obviously I already have one in there, and you go, show me some designs. And if this doesn't do it quickly, I'll come back to it. But one of the things these will do is it will find the colors on your website. It will look at any pictures on your website, and it will try and the fonts, and it will try and match them up to create some little graphics that you might want to use in your emails. But you will also, it's another way of revealing exactly what those colors are for your site. So I'll count to 5, and then if it hasn't done it, we'll revisit it because it does take a little bit of time. Too late. Right, we'll come back to it. So back onto the sign-up forms. That was just trying to explain to you that it's important you get the right colors. The simplest way, if somebody designed your website, is to go to them and say, can you let me know what the colors are for my website, please? So you go through here, customize the colors, and then it's this link that you link to or you'll put on your website or wherever. It's the simplest way of doing a form. The second type of form is embedded forms. So embedded forms are the ones that appear within your site. So they might look like this. They might look like this or like this. These ones here, your web developer can style them for you, but these are the kind of standard ones you'd see. And you can change this to say, get monthly gardening tips today, whatever your call to action is. And then the way it works is this bit of code here goes into your website in the back end, and then this form will appear on your site. Quite straightforward. The next type of form, and you may use all 3 of these, is subscriber pop-up. The ones that I showed you earlier were not done on Mailchimp. They were done using OptiMonk, OptiMonster, whereas these ones are, this is actually Mailchimp's own version. So within here, you can go in, customize your text, upload a picture. I've got a picture of some traffic, which is not really appropriate for today, but it's the only image I had at the time. And then I get to say, right, this is the form that they fill in, and then this is the field they see once they've filled it in. Here I've got like a recipe book download, so they can download something. And then I just decide how it's triggered. So I've got it set to come up on exit. But it could be after 5 seconds immediately. Don't do that. 20 seconds maybe if you want to, but I want it on exit. And then when you go into here, it'll give you the information. I'm not going to turn this on my main website. It'll give you the information to be able to put a little bit of code on your website so that pop-up works. Okay, so those are the 3 kind of ways people might get on there. Any questions so far, let me know. Just to go back, I know that in the chat it says about the one-to-one training. It's like up to 7 hours worth of training, which can be bits and bobs here and there. So it's quite, we managed to get a lot done in that time on virtually any subject related to digital marketing anyway. Now, when you're sending an email, one of the things you would normally do is go to an email you've already done, and then you would go to this little drop down on the right-hand side and replicate. Simplest way, because your emails will evolve over time and you'll change, you'll add little bits into them, and then you may want to then just start where you left off and change a few bits. That's what you'd normally do. Today, we're going to go for create a campaign. Mailchimp wants you to do absolutely all forms of marketing through it, all the way down here through to sending a postcode to somebody if they've clicked on an email. So you have to bear that in mind and cut through all that. And that's why it's called a campaign, not an email. But we want to just create an email. Before I go any further on this bit, just to point out that there is a thing called automated. And within there, on a basic, on the free account, you can create a welcome email. So when anyone signs up, they automatically get an email through, which can be a really good way of giving people a download or a discount code, or just giving them some basic links to things that you do on your website. But for today, we're just doing a normal campaign. With the automated campaigns, you can do a lot more than that. You can do what we call drip feed campaigns. So you can send one a week for 4 weeks or whatever, which is, if you think about it, it's kind of effortless. Somebody signs up on your website through a pop-up, and then they get an email every week for 4 weeks to cultivate that customer. Good choice of word. So this is going to be June newsletter. This is an internal name. Whatever you do, don't put an email out called June News or June Newsletter. Your subject needs to be enticing, interesting. 8 out of 10 people will read the subject, only 2 out of 10 will click it. So how good you make that subject will determine how many people actually go through and read your email. Now at the moment, and I showed you this earlier, it's going to send it to all of my contacts, all 275 contacts. If I want to change that, this is where I go and select whether I want to do it to a group or a segment or whatever. So I'm going to show you this. If this is too much for you and it's all brand new, don't panic. A lot of people just literally send it to everyone every single time. But if you do want to be more precise with it, you literally go into here and say, instead of all people in the audience, click on the drop down and say, I want to do anyone that I got from my 2021 competition, or whatever other tag there was. Or I want to do a group or new segment. So tags are quite simple, and then groups, and this looks complicated because there's so many options, but actually you won't need most of them. You go onto here and say, if any of these are true. So for example, the gender is male. Or I could have said the customer grade was high, whatever data you've got in there. That's the way you do the groups. The main other one we would use is campaign activity. So what actually have people done? Have they opened any of the last 5 campaigns? Have they not opened any of the last campaigns, or a specific campaign? And then that enables you to resend emails to people based on their activity. So if you've got people who haven't opened anything you've done, maybe you might want to send a different email to them that's really like a better offer, a better voucher, to really try to tease out some interest from them. Maybe the people that are actually clicking are the people who can tolerate another email from you because they're obviously interested. So you can really customize it. For today, I'm just going to set that back to anyone who's a subscriber. Who's sending the email? I like to change that and say some, like I think ours says Eddie from InSync. Just feels a little bit more personal. You have to think about your corporate brand and how personal you want to be. But that's what I like to do on mine, even if I haven't written it. Subject line, which could be, did you manage to plant everything you needed in May? Now, and honestly, I haven't prepared these at all, so that's why they're not that great. But if you ask people a question, you put a question mark at the end of it, people will pose that question to themselves automatically. So having something that's going to try and engage them. Think about the text underneath. Find out what you can plant outside right now. Or if I'm doing the other side of things and it was vegetables or whatever, you know, see our latest 3 salad recipes. So this is for you, Alison, and everyone else who does that kind of thing. Any our latest salad recipes that go with barbecues or whatever. Here's our homemade coleslaw recipe. Something like that that's just going to engage people and get them in. Never make an email just about one thing though. Make it about several things. You'll find when you send an email, you'll get inquiries coming back to you about things totally unrelated to what you put in there. So I like to have a block on an email, which is covering the standard things that I do as a business, links to the main sections, as well as something current. Because it's really not good to just focus on one specific thing. And then we come to the best bit really, which is, and the longest bit, which is designing your email. Now, when you first look at this, you think, oh my God, there's so many options. Which template do I go for? You'll be very pleased to know that most of them you can't have unless you pay. So you can have this little free one. You have this little free, these 2 free ones here, but most of them you have to pay. So I'm going to go for this one, which is perfectly adequate. Mailchimp is trying a new version of editing. At the moment, you click on the left and then you edit on the right. And you can use Mailchimp for years, but it will still baffle you. And even I did a Mailchimp course earlier this week, actually. I went in to change something. And of course, then I remember, oh yeah, I've got it on the right-hand side. So they're changing it so it's all in one place. It's not quite ready. If they do force you down that route, it is possible in your preferences to swap back in your profile to this using this kind of editor. The other one is a bit buggy at the moment. But the basic principle is that you build your email by dragging blocks in from the right. So if I say I want another block of text in there, I drag it over to there. And then I'd edit the text within here. So I might grab some text in here. Let me just borrow some text. Get rid of that. So this is what I might do. I might get the first paragraph of a blog that I've written. And I might just put that in. And then I might say, read the full article. And it's that I'd want to link to read the article. So when you're looking at all of this text, it's got the normal features like bold and italic and all that sort of thing and changing the size. But the one thing that's slightly different is you've got this hyperlink. If you manage your own website, you'll have seen things like this before. So I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to link it to this article. Never, ever type in a web address. Always copy and paste it. Even if it's small, even if it's just the first little bit of your domain name, always copy and paste it. The time that you don't do that and you think, oh, I'll just type it in, will be the time that you put a semicolon instead of a colon. You put a full stop instead of a comma or whatever, vice versa. So always copy and paste. And that has now made a little link which people can go and read the full article. Now I might think to myself, actually, it'd be nice to have the picture there as well. So I'm going to borrow this picture. Hopefully you'll have it on your computer. very good question. I'm going to answer that in a second. Save image as. So I'll have that on my images, which I'll come back to in a second. In terms of the font size, if you're importing it, when you go into the text, there's an option here, where are we now? There, which just pastes as plain text. You should really do your bolding and sizing within Mailchimp, not in another platform, because you may be using a font that other people's computers don't have. Mailchimp, it may get confused. So the easiest thing to do is you copy it and then you paste it as plain text, and then you format it within Mailchimp. Hopefully that makes sense. And then use these styles here as much as you can. So set it to default text and reset it. So if it's coming, looks a bit weird, go to that, select it, and then change it to default text. These styles you can define here. So you can go in and set these up and say, when I do this style, it's going to be this size, this color. And you can go through and set that in the, before we got into this stage, for every single area. But you can do it here as you go. Hopefully that answers the question. So that image I'm going to put in. Now, it is actually technically possible, but there's two things you should never do. One is the domain, is the web address copying, and the other one is putting an image within this text box. It's possible to do it, but it will ruin how it looks on a mobile. So what you need to do instead is create another block. So I'm going to go into here and drag in a image block. And I'm going to upload an image, which is not any of these. It's not off my Instagram. It's one that I'm going to upload from my computer. And there it is. Looks fine. What I'm going to do as well is link it. So many people forget to do this. Everything should be clickable. When people read an email, you've got seconds to get them to either read it, delete it, or move on or click or whatever. So everything should be clickable. So this email now, that's clickable. This will be clickable. Save and close. And you go through putting dividers in, making it look however you want it to look. If I think, actually, I want the story above and then I want to move that around, then I just drag this. And the key there is, so I haven't tried to have the entire story within here. I might even cut this even a lot shorter, to be honest with you, and like make it, you know, even shorter, with much stronger call to action to say, go and read it, with a title as well. So start the story on your website and then drag them to there to read it using your email. All these are different. Image cards, which is basically a bit of image and a text. You've got image groups, where you can have up to 5 different images. That's something that's quite nice to have on every single email, maybe at the bottom, with all maybe links to your main categories. So people, when they've looked at your stories, can just say, oh yeah, I want to look at this, or I want to look at that. Buttons. I'm not going to go through all these in detail, because if you need that, we can go through that separately. When using images, it's okay to leave the title as a number or give it as a better name, as in the name of the image, I think you're talking about. So it doesn't really matter too much on the internet. Okay, there's 2 factors here, Callum. One, on the internet, if you were doing from a search point of view, I would rename it, because it's great for search engines. So I might call it something, I don't know, herbs online or whatever. The one thing you should customize is the alt text. So you would describe what that image is in a way that says what it is, but also entices people to make sure they click that button, which downloads all of the images. You know, when you open your email and it doesn't show the images until you agree to it, it's the alt text that might persuade people to actually download it. And that's where you change that. That's the way.
Thanks.
Brilliant. That's the way that they find out whether you've opened it or not as well. So you go through all this, build your email, never touch this bit at the bottom. That's always going to be filled in with your information at the end, and you won't be able to send it until you've done that, until that's in place. So don't change that. Remember to customize every area, like this social media area. I see a lot of people don't do this. So customize it with your Facebook address, your Twitter address if you use it. Add Instagram in there if you want to. You can add other ones in as well. But then once you've done that and you've got everything done, then go to the preview section at the top. Enter that preview mode. I've got it blurred out there on there. Actually, it doesn't matter because it's my email address. So I can see what it's going to look like on a desktop. I can see it on a mobile. So I can check that it's mobile friendly. Seems fine to me. So that's one little check you do. And the next main one, ignore the other ones, to be honest with you, is send a test email. Send it to yourself, send it to a friend, but you'll notice here, and I'm going to put this in the chat because it might not be in the presentation. So this is mailtester.com. So with mailtester.com, what you do, you go to it and you say, right, you want to check your email, check how spammy it is before you send it. And it gives you a very bespoke email address, which you then send a test email to. And obviously you can send a test to yourself as well. So that sends that test email to Mailtester. And it will now look at it and then analyze it and say how likely it is to be spammed, to get through spam filters. Have I used words like free, buy now, sale, today, only, all that sort of stuff. And it will in the subject line, so it will look for that. And then 10 out of 10, mainly because it's a pretty boring email that I've done with very little information on there, but, and there's little tips, I'm not going to go into this today, but there are ways to make it slightly more likely that your content will get through. But I won't bother bore you with that today, but 10 out of 10. And then you basically go through and send your email. Now, it won't let me send it because I've got some default text in there. In other words, text that's just on there that Mailchimp has in the folders before I edit them. And it won't let me send it until I've done that. Remember, you can send it. You don't have to send it now. You can schedule it for a later date, later time. But then when you have sent it, make sure you go back and have a look at the performance. I can't do it on here as a dummy account, but click in, have a look what worked, what didn't work, where did people click. You can even see who clicked. So you can even follow up individually people who've clicked on certain sections. So that's a real whistle-stop tour of Mailchimp. I just want to cover a couple of slides at the end. All of the things I've talked about are in the presentations, which you'll get, but I'm just going to go right to the end now. These are all the things I've talked about to you already. Yeah, and these are the two just tips really, just before I wrap up. Main thing is be quick, be punchy, make sure you got the call to action, drive people to your website. Don't expect they're going to read it all. They won't. They'll be looking at it for very few seconds. So get them to your website as soon as you can. And then the one thing I would say is this option here. There's a couple of options with this. Resend it to people who've clicked. Resend it to people who haven't opened. The main one we always do is resending it to people who didn't open the email 24 hours later. People are reluctant to do that because it takes a bit of time. They think they're going to upset their customers by sending them too much information. But if you have the Mailchimp app, again free, then what you'll find is if you use that, you'll go on, have a look at your campaign, and it will say, here's your campaign, this is how it did. Would you like to resend it to anyone who didn't open it? And you say yes, and then a couple of clicks later, you've sent your email. So it really will sometimes double the amount of business or interest you get from it. So that's, in terms of the duration of the session, that's all we've got time for. I will take any questions if you have any, and do bear in mind that quite a few businesses have access to one-to-one digital training, and it can be, well, hopefully it's beneficial. I know people have had a lot out of it, but bear in mind we can look at anything from search engine optimization through to the whole email marketing thing and Google Analytics. People have built their own websites, all sorts of things. So do get in touch with Tyfu Cymru if you want to take advantage of that while it's available. Homepage and landing page. So basically, the difference between a homepage and a landing page, it's where you send people to. So I think this was in a question I had a second ago. Use a relevant landing page. So rather than send, if you're going to promote a certain product or a certain service, don't send them to the home page, then make them go and find where that is. The landing page is where you're going to take them to. So if you take them to a deep page within your site. So like I linked to that blog, for example, I wasn't going to do a story and then link to the home page. If you've got a product that you're selling, a herb, then you would link to that herb rather than to the home page. So the home page is kind of a landing page as well, but it's just saying, take them to the right place, basically. Cool. Feel free to unmute. Everyone's got any questions, otherwise I'll hand back.
All quiet. Okay, well, thank you ever so much, Eddie, for such a informative session there. Yeah, like you mentioned, the one-to-one training is 100% funded, so please don't hesitate to get in touch. If I could just direct you to the chat box, Johnny's just popped a link in for a survey there. If you could fill that in, that would be really helpful for us to plan future training. And yeah, thank you very much, Eddie, and thank you all for contributing your questions, and thank you for attending today, and I'd like to see you soon at another event. Check out our website for any upcoming events.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.